Order, order. Hello and welcome to Reporters Without Orders, a podcast where we talk about what made news, what didn't, and some things that absolutely shouldn't have. For the last 2 weeks, we've been hearing about the Gyanvapi Mosque controversy. Today, joining me is Aishwarya Iyer, a reporter with Scroll, who's actually been following the case quite closely and reporting on it. Thank you for joining us, Aishwarya. I know you're in the middle of like a bunch of things today, but you've taken out time to come join us, so thank you so much. So just to give you a little bit of context, nearly a year ago on April 18th, 5 women had filed a petition in the Varanasi trial court seeking permission to pray and conduct Hindu rituals at the Gyanvapi Mosque, where they said they had found, on one wall, they had found the Shringar Gauri, right? And last month, the court in Varanasi appointed a survey commission to videograph parts of the mosque. And on May 16th, news became viral that they'd found a Shivling in the mosque complex, that in one part of the mosque premises. And so before we go into talking about the case itself, Aishwarya, I want to start by asking you, this entire case rests on the petition of 5 women. So can you tell us a little bit about who these 5 women are?
Yeah, so there are 5 women, 4 of them from Banaras and 1 from Delhi. And this petition was filed last year, formally admitted and all only in August 2021. And within less than a year, they were able to achieve what previous petitioners were not able to, which basically means that, so the Shringar Gauri was prayed to on Chaith Navratri, the 4th day of Chaith Navratri every year. There'd be an hour or two that these women, Shringar Gauri is an incarnation of Parvati. It's basically an idol on the western wall, which can be seen. So, right, a part of, like, it's pretty obvious that the mosque was built on remnants of a temple. So, Shringar Gauri is prayed from, it's from the Chabutra. It's like the courtyard, the outside courtyard. It used to be prayed by the local women once every year. So these women got to know each other through that time. Like, they've known each other for over 10 years. They used to meet at bhajans and kirtans, and super religious people. So they do like this temple this day, this goddess this day for the Navratri, for Ram Navami, all of that. So over the years, they got to know each other better and better. And eventually around 2020, 2021, they started discussing what they could do about it, if they could take this forward legally or not. And that's when they met. So 3 of them, they're all like, so Sita Sahu, Manju Vyas, and Rekha Pathak. These 3 spoke about it the most. And then they went and met Sohan Lal Arya, who is a former VHP leader. He's a senior VHP leader who's filed a similar petition back in 1995 to want a survey in the temple.
Same temple.
It's the same temple. Right. It's the same demand for the Shringar Gauri idol, because the Shringar Gauri had become, like, what had happened was, after the Babri Masjid demolition, the security around the mosque kept increasing, because of which it became harder to go, like, the access to the Shringar Gauri idol was much easier. And over a period of time, it became harder and harder. And the reason it became harder is because, and this is admitted by the VHP leaders themselves, that these, khurafati, he called them. So these people within the Hindu community would throw clay pots from the Kashi Vishwanath place into the mosque.
Right.
To offer Shraddhanjali. So over a period of time, this led to obviously tensions and law and order situations, and the wall around the mosque kept going higher. The barricading kept increasing, and the security kept increasing. Even the mosque authorities actually gave up a part of their plot after the Babri Masjid demolition to the local law and order authorities to be able to create sufficient security for themselves. So this has been a long-standing issue, and what the women relate to is, Nidhi, is basically not being, we were being pushed around, we were not given proper access, only 1 hour, like, how is that fair to us? Shringar Gauri is such a important idol for God, for like married women and for our husbands and stuff like that.
Was there like any one incident which triggered it? And also during this entire time, the Shivling hasn't yet come up, right? Like, it's been...
Yeah, not at all. So if you see the older Sohan Lal Arya's petition, it was it was clear, Shringar Gauri, as well as and he'll say this in as many words, and to look for other known and unknown idols in the mosque. But in this petition, it's restricted to Shringar Gauri. However, it's after the Shivling was allegedly found on the last day of the survey, a day later, if I'm not wrong, 17th May, they moved a plea in court, the 4 Banaras women, to also do further investigation. Ki hum to Shringar Gauri ko dhoondne gaye the, but Baba mil gaye. But what really unites all these women is getting to know each other over the years. And when they met Sohan Lal Arya, who's the VHP leader, who has a history of filing these petitions in court, that's when it gained the form that it has today. It got the legal recognition and standing. And I won't shy away from saying that, Arya and the other men involved in this case, of course, saw that putting women in front would help their case. They wanted to give that a shot because, they were the ones leading the case till now and it wasn't helping.
In what way did they think the women would make a better...
Because it's the goddess for married women. So married women led it. Local Banarasi women led it. There's a certain attraction to it in terms of media attention, and religiously it's just so much more significant. And I think, also the assumption maybe that the courts are going to listen to women more than they're going to listen to men. But yeah, so Sohan Lal Arya involved his wife, Lakshmi Devi, in it. And after that, there's this whole thing because the petitioners have split. So there's a 5th woman from Delhi and the commissioners split, the judge was removed, now the petitioners have split. It's been extremely chaotic.
But how did the woman from Delhi get involved?
So there is this Sangathan called...
Rakhi Singh, right? If her name is...
Yeah, Rakhi Singh, called the Vishwa Vedic Sanathan Sangh. And the goal of which is their goal is Hindu Rashtra.
Is it a big group?
Not really. They don't seem to have much of a following. But Jitendra Singh Bisain, who is the head of the institution, says that we don't need to tell people what kind of work we've done and all of that. And the 4... So, Manju Vyas said in as many words that Jitendra Singh, who's the head of the Vedic Sanathan Sangh, he was very angry that his niece, Rakhi, was not getting enough credit. So Manju said, if she wants credit, then she should be here. She can't just sit in Delhi and not attend a hearing and get credit. And Sohan Lal Arya, Lakshmi Devi's wife, called the organization a Farzi organization. So of course they all want credit. It's pretty obvious. So yeah, but these 4 women are really holding it together, and it's not like Rakhi saying that them splitting apart will have any impact on the case.
Yeah.
It'll just mean different pleas by different lawyers.
Right. So Rakhi Singh has a lawyer now, and the other 4 women have one lawyer representing.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What is it? The timing is kind of curious. Why now? Why is this an issue now?
Because from May 6th, when the survey was ordered, there have been tensions. So back in the 1990s, when they tried to order the survey, it couldn't happen. And then the case was in cold storage for the longest time. Now, there are lots of legal questions involved, right? Because especially after the Ayodhya judgment, which really re-emphasizes the Places of Worship Act 1991, and really clarifies why that act is so essential, goes back to parliamentary debates, to sort of really, really leave no doubt whatsoever about the importance of the act when it comes to other places of religious worship. Because the act came when there was, where the Ram Janmabhoomi movement was at its peak, and the Rath Yatras were being organized, and in 89, Kar Sevaks were shot at in UP, and now there was a BJP government in Uttar Pradesh. So the government had to do something to ensure it doesn't blow out of proportion. And the Allahabad High Court judge, when he was listening to the matter, he actually said something which could have been widely misinterpreted. He basically said...
the act, basically, to break it down, says that any monument, any debate of which monument belongs to whom cannot be had anymore. And Ram Janmabhoomi issue was the only exception to that at that point.
Yeah. So the 2 important sections, the one is section 3, which says that the importance of the act, that under this law, there can be no conversion of a place of worship of one religion to a place of worship of another religion, is section 3. And section 4 states that it prohibits any legal cases from being instituted regarding the ownership of a status of a place of worship that has been existent since 15th August 1947.
Right.
So what the problematic thing that Justice Sharma had done, Justice D.V. Sharma of the Allahabad High Court, he had said that the judge had suggested that the law, 1991 Act, will not apply to cases where there was a dispute which had begun before 1991, thus allowing for more cases. However, the Ayodhya judgment, Ayodhya Babri judgment, is extremely clear to say that, he was erroneous in his views.
Yeah.
It is essential for the secular fabric of the country, going back to parliamentary debates and upholding the law. And so, in a way, we have the judgment and then we have the Ayodhya judgment again, which really begs the question as to why the Banaras Varanasi judge even allowed for the survey without adjudicating on the maintainability of the suit, which is why it's great that, the Supreme Court has said that we haven't transferred and it's not a comment on the capability of the judge, but it's great that it's moved from that court to the senior most judge of the Varanasi court, and the hearing's supposed to be tomorrow, which is the 26th of May. And of course, it'll take a while before there's more clarity on this. But first, now what is going to happen is you're going to decide the maintainability of the suit.
Right.
But the problem is the Shivling has allegedly been found.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. Now, once the Shivling was found, what is it that both sides are claiming?
I was there for 5 days, and the Muslims are really scared. They are angry because they saw Babri go away, and they feel like they've been humiliated and they've had to make compromises that they wouldn't have wanted to ideally. And they see that judgment as unfair. It was shocking that there was no protest when the Babri Masjid verdict came out. I remember doing a story then on how there were like 10 days of meetings by the National Security Advisor with the Muslim representatives across India and like saints and mahants to sort of ensure that there was no communal violence in the aftermath of it. The difference also is that Babri is not a mosque that people would go to regularly and offer their prayers. So because of that, they don't have that bonding with the place. For Banaras, it's very different. Like people will say, I went there with my grandfather. The local Hindus will say, ki wahan pe shaka lagti hai. I have a photo of the shaka behind. Were
you there the day the Shivling was found? The news broke, basically.
No, I was there after that. I think the 17th is when it was found. 19th I was there. And yeah, it was like, they were really scared, the Muslims, but they're also very angry. There's a very clear difference in the way the younger generation and the older generation approaches politics. For the older generation, it's more about, sab theek ho jayega. They've seen so much worse and they've seen things always get better. So they feel like, it'll be fine. But for the younger generation amongst the Hindus and Muslims, they are not, they're very taken in by where this country is headed in terms of polarization, and they're angry and they have strong opinions and they want to do something about it. They just can't wait and watch. And, so yeah, amongst the Muslims, there's a lot of fear, and amongst Hindus,
you're,
of course,
in fact, doing a report on that, right?
Yeah, so I've done a story on what the Muslims feel about it and how significant the Gyanvapi Masjid is for them versus the Babri Masjid, because not only is it a place they're emotionally attached to, but it's also a place where, it's also about their existence. It's about the 1991 Act. It's about the Ayodhya judgment. It's about what the Supreme Court has said to uphold the secular. So it's about their identity. It's about their existence.
Belonging at the end of the day, yeah.
Yeah, it's about feeling whether they're a part of the country or not. You're right. So that is for that. But now amongst the Hindus, which is a story I'm working on, should be out by the time this podcast is out, is about, so it's divided into the local Hindus, so no businessman or trader will ever say that they want violence or they want communal tension. So that's what, that is the, that's the bias they are guided by, or that's their personal interest. But the regular Hindus, they'll all say that they're very calm. They know this will happen. The state government is ours. The central government is ours. The judiciary has been doing everything we want them to do. We don't have to worry. We can relax. If we need to worry, we will worry. We are not worried about how we'll go about strategy. We know what we're going to do. But let's wait. Yogi ji sab theek kar denge.
It's interesting you say this because actually yesterday I was on a cab on the way to office and I was just chatting with the Uber driver and he started this conversation. He said, "Oh, you're a journalist, so let me interview you for a change. What do you think about the Gyanvapi controversy?" And in that conversation, he said similar things that he said, but one thing he expressed was the fact that till now, Hindus have not fought and asked for our rights. We've been very patient. We've been very kind. In our culture, it's never been a part. Fighting and violence has never been a part of our culture. But now it's time to ask for our rights and fight for our rights. Is that a sentiment that's also there on ground? That, like, if by chance the verdict goes in the favor of Muslims, are the Hindus going? Is there this, sometimes when you're on ground, before something happens, you can sense this whole feeling of, okay, there's a preparation for something to go wrong.
It's extremely scary. The kind of things I've heard, I would really like to self-censor because these were not off the record conversations. These were on record, allowed to take their photo, their designation, everything. And so which was also very scary because of how normalized it is then that you're willing to talk to a reporter who's come from Delhi and works for a website.
Yeah.
You're willing to tell her these things. Generally when it's women, they don't, or they'll say it on the condition of anonymity. But in Banaras, they were very brazen about the desire to resort to violence if they need to. But there's a calmness about it. There's like
this is the younger generation.
They're very certain that what they want will happen, and if it doesn't, they will resort to violence, and they're Islamophobic, and they don't like the older people will not say ill about a Muslim as openly as the younger Hindu generation would. So there's a lot of Islamophobia. There's a lot of violent rhetoric against the Muslims, and the difference is that. Instead of the Babri Masjid demolition where you had to climb on the mosque, this time a bulldozer will reach Gyanvapi. And there are all these memes floating online. And so there is a certain, we've already won kind of expression amongst the right-wing Hindutva, younger supremacists. Like the Hindu Yuva Vahini is massive in Banaras, in that area. Unka gad hai, like that, they are the most significant ground root organization, and they understand their relevance because of how close they are to Yogi Adityanath, because their district chief, who's called Bhola, is very close to Yogi Adityanath, like photos together and all of that. So they understand that their job is not only to be Hindu Gavani, but also bring all the Hindu Sangatans together. So they're doing that, like anyone's allowed, like there's no competition because they're above and beyond all this. And
But is there a conversation between the older generation of Hindus and the younger generation of Hindus? Like, is there any sort of negotiation happening there that, okay, the older generation is advising younger generation to take it easy, don't resort to violence?
See, the thing is, openly, no Hindu will tell, like a moderate, liberal or older Hindu will tell a younger Hindu to, at least in my experience, will tell them to not resort to violence or whatever. Because that's not the popular opinion to have. You're not... and also it's not the need of the hour. They don't think it's necessary. They think they've already won. This is something that has to happen. Babri sirf jhaki hai, Kashi Mathura baki hai, ek dhakka aur do, Gyanvapi tod do. These are legitimate. These are things that they've grown up with. So it's not something that they'll come across as unpopular. Maybe they're having these conversations behind closed doors. But in front of me, it's pretty clear that whoever you are, whether you're moderate or you're an extremist, your way of expressing your discontent might differ. But everyone agrees that Gyanvapi has to go. And so the older lot will say it will go through the law or it will go through the courts. And the younger lot will say, we are waiting. We are waiting to get a signal. And we will do whatever we need to do. And, there's obviously an impunity that we can do whatever and get away with it. Yeah.
Listeners, if you want to listen to the rest of the podcast, you'll have to go to our website and go on to our podcast player or listen to it on any podcast platform that you get our podcast from. We're going to be talking to Aishwarya a little more about her experience in Varanasi and some of the reports she's done there. A lot of conversation has happened on Gyanvapi, but you can really get a lot of authentic information from reporters who've been there on ground, and Aishwarya spent a week on ground in Varanasi. So go to our website and listen to our podcast on our podcast player.
The subscription model is something that keeps News Laundry afloat, but we need hundreds of thousands of people to completely transform the news ecosystem. So you pay for news, so it serves you. So click on the link with this video, subscribe to News Laundry and pay to keep news free, और गर्व से कहो मेरे खर्च पर आज़ाद है खबरें.